Okay, hi everyone. Who's been to my talk last year? Okay, that's nice. So you have I have a tradition. I go barefoot. I think it's cool. I think you should do the same. Makes you feel comfortable. One thing about this talk, a lot of the stuff here is not yet fixed, and so therefore, please don't put any screenshots on social media. Don't make any notification or mentions of the things I say. Enjoy the talk. This is mostly for entertainment, okay? So you don't need to take any notes. What I'm going to talk about is the stuff that I find without looking. Most of the security researchers, when they walk around, they choose a subject, right? And they go research. They take something that is interesting to them, maybe a new technology that comes out, and they go look for vulnerabilities. What I'm going to show you is a bunch of examples that things I just ran into. I wasn't actually looking, something that caught my attention while I was going around my usual business. And these are not very sophisticated examples. There's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in the end. So let's start. First example, surveillance cameras. I moved into a new apartment. It's in a building, and there's a building complex. So after a while, we got some security cameras installed in all the buildings. So we have a WhatsApp group for the building. Of course, it's muted. You get the weirdest stuff there. I don't even want to talk about that. But we got a message saying you can use this Provision Cam 2 application, and you get actually a 4-part credential. You got to have an IP address and a port, a building number or a system name, whatever, user and a password. So that's not something that should be easily guessed, right? You open the application and you just enter that information there. You add a device, and when you do that, you can see that we have up to 16 cameras per building. And that got me started to think, right? Got me thinking, because the IP address and the port that I had, so it was an IP address and the port was 22. So, the first thing that you think is like, oh, that's SSH, right? Let's try to SSH into that. And that actually didn't work. So, the next thing that you do is you just try stuff. Okay? This is how you do research. You try stuff. We don't always have this grand scheme and a list of stuff we follow. We just, go after instincts. And I tried the IP address, and guess what? This thing is actually open to the world. Does anyone recognize this screen? This is the control panel for an ADSL modem. So this is connected to the internet via an ADSL modem, and for some reason, it has remote management enabled. Who wants to guess the name and password? I'm very proud of you. You're in the right conference. So yes, it's admin. You get inside, and now you can do whatever you want. And one of the interesting things was actually a list of the port forwarding rules that they had there. They have 3 different rules, and guess what? They're for the 3 different buildings of the projects. These are the project names. These are names of trees. If anybody speaks Hebrew here. And yeah, you just look at this, and I'm like, okay, so if my building was port 22, and so maybe the other ones are the other ports, and you just change the name of the system. Mine is Geffen. You just try the other ones, right? Well, yeah. You just add a device, you use the exact IP address, you just change the port based on the building. Now you know the building name because of the rule set, and now I can look at the cameras of all the 3 buildings, which is kind of creepy. Now, this is still in research. We have a maintenance company that runs the building complex, and it turns out that they have a bunch more buildings in the country that they are running. So what I'm doing right now, the next stage of the research, is actually to scan the IP address range of Israel and look for other buildings. And that's going to be even more creepy, and maybe I talk about it next. So that's still in research. Second example, taxi order. I fly a lot, and there's a nice taxi service in Israel that gives you the best deal when you go to the airport. So they have a web interface, that's their logo. And this is a nice form. It says taxi order form, your phone, your city, street, house number, date, and time. What you do is you put in your phone number, and then you put in your address. Now here's the interesting thing. That was what happened the first time, but the second time, and every time after that, if you enter a phone number that was already used in the past to book a taxi, they automatically retrieve the address. What? Okay. So what is the natural thing that you want to do now?
Try different phone numbers.
You want to try all phone numbers, right? And figure out who lives where. One of the things that I do is I talk about ethical hacking. It's going to come up again later, but there are ways to properly do research without causing damage. So one of the things that we're going to talk about here is ethical hacking. First of all, you keep a low probing rate, because if you probe it too quickly, you could crash the service. We don't want to do that, because then it's really hard to convince later that we only meant to do well. So we're going to try 2 or 3 times a second, not more. We want to keep privacy. Privacy is a very big part of ethical hacking. So what we did is it was when I was working at Perimeter X, so it's we give a phone number, we get back an address. We convert the address to a needle on a Google map, right? And then we throw away the address. And when we finish the research, we take a screenshot of the map and we throw away the map, right? So from this, you can't go back to anything. And the information that we retrieved no longer exists. Because remember, it translates a phone number into a person's address. And maybe I don't know who that person is, but still, somebody else who might see that information, they might recognize one of the numbers and say, wait, why did you book a taxi from there when you live there, right? So there are privacy problems. And that's what we did. This is the result. So the airport is here. And you can see that they have customers from around the airport. Next thing, of course, is to write a disclosure, alert them of the problem. And guess what? This is a taxi service. So when we called them, they didn't really know what to do. So they ignored it. And we called them again 3 days later, and they're like, listen, dude, we have no idea what you're talking about. So we actually went back and looked at the code again, and it turns out we somehow missed, and it's a little embarrassing to admit, but we somehow missed the fact that the code that was doing this dialogue was third party. It wasn't actually running on the website of the taxi service. It was fetched from somewhere else. And it turns out that one of the parameters for the fetching was the station ID. And you're like, aha, what happens if I change the station ID? You get another station. So it's the same back end servicing 10 different taxi services from all around the country. So the same trick that we did on one particular taxi service can now be applied to the entire country. And this is already a huge thing. So we called the guy that runs the company. The first thing that he assumed was that we were bad guys, that we were hackers. He was threatening to call the police. It took some convincing to let him know that we are the good guys. This is something that if you guys research vulnerabilities or report them that you're familiar with, you have to be very, very careful in what you do, because sometimes you piss the other guy off and you need to be able to prove that you're not doing bad. One of the ways to do that, by the way, is to keep a clean reputation. You can never, ever play both sides. Okay, we had the photo before of malware tech. So this is alleged, right? We don't really know. They claim that he also wrote the malware and then researched the malware. If you don't have a clean reputation, it's going to be very hard for you to defend yourself. So this was reported and ignored. Airport security, this is one of my favorites. This, by the way, is a photo that I didn't take, but it was taken. Does anyone recognize where this is taken? It's quite a famous place. It's in St. Martin in the Caribbean. This photo is a tribute because earlier this year in April, the Kaspersky Security Analyst Summit was there. We had a great time, and then a few months later, it was a huge tropical storm, and the island is pretty much destroyed. The airport is destroyed. It's all very sad, so this is my little tribute to the airport. This is Chris. Chris is one of the best researchers in the world. This is the guy that got pulled off a plane for tweeting that he took over the engine. You might remember that. It was a joke, by the way. He didn't actually do that. But ever since he got caught, we have problems. You can't mess with on-flight entertainment anymore. It's very fun to play with that. It's like a little Linux system, and sometimes there are problems. But you can't play with that anymore, because if you get caught, they take it very, very seriously. You can go to jail for that, right? You can't carry any hacking tools on the plane, because now the security at the airport, they look for that. They don't like it. You can ask the guys that are walking around with the pineapple tree thing, they have a bunch of hardware that most of it cannot go on the plane, right? You have to check it in, so it's a problem. So what you have to do is just resort to regular stuff. And when I say regular, I was going to the lounge on my way back to Israel from some conference. The lounge had a little internet corner. It had a bunch of all-in-one PCs, which you can use to have free internet. And in the corner of that table, there was a little ADSL, or not ADSL, wireless router. So, of course, I see a wireless router. I'm thinking to myself, admin, let's play around with it. What's the worst that can happen? I can have another slide for a conference. Well, here I am. So I connect to, it's a Windows machine, you get the default, the gateway IP, you go there, and I wasn't paying attention. I think I looked the other way, but there was some redirection happening. So the IP that I went to ended up changing, and I missed that. And then I got to this screen. Does anyone recognize the language? It's kind of, yes, it is Polish. Yes. So, of course, I'm trying admin, and it doesn't work. It had better not work. This is an airport, right? But then something weird happened. I missed a key on the keyboard, and instead of pressing tab, somehow something happened, and I hit enter, or I don't know what, and boom. It's admin and no password. Okay, but it's a small router. I mean, what can you do? You can, rename the wireless network to be something that will scare people away. You can do that. However, this is the interface that I got, and this is not a wireless router. I didn't know what I was looking at. I had to actually Google that. So let me tell you what Extreme Networks is. Terabit class convergence ready modular switch for edge to core and data center deployment.
Awesome.
Okay, I don't know what that means. Greater than 9.5 terabits per second backplane capacity with 2.56 terabit BPS switching capacity and 1920 Mbps throughput. Advanced security platform enabled by a centrally managed policy architecture, blah, blah. So as you can guess, this is actually the main airport switch. This is not the little, wireless router on the, I'm like, okay. Now I start taking screenshots because this has to be recorded. So let's look at the VLANs because this is where it gets interesting. So, administrators, right? Gotta be interesting. Privileged. What can go wrong in a privileged network in an airport? Now remember, this is the VLAN list, right? And I'm the administrator on the switch, so I can put the computer that I'm working on into that VLAN, right? And you remember that this computer is the internet computer, right? Just saying. Secured servers, all right. MGMT, management. But this is not even the fun part. Well, it is the fun part. Now comes the scary part. Who knows what ISLERT is? Anybody ever research airports here? Good. Now is not the time. So, ISLERT is the weather reporting system. They use that to know what's going on, predict, problems, redirections, ice on the runway, whatever. Okay. Next one. FIDS. You guys know what FIDS is? Yes, you do. This. The screens that tell you which flight is going through which gate at what time. You know what happens if I mess with that? I don't even need to hack it. It's enough that you do a denial of service attack. If all these screens at the airport stop working, they're going to shut down the airport. They're going to understand that something bad is happening. Okay? Gets better. BHS. What's BHS? Remember, this is an airport. It's the baggage handling system. Right? If there's someone you don't like, why not send their luggage to Malaysia? Why not? Of course, this is theoretical, right? We're the good guys. Don't give me the black hat later. I'm not going to wear it. And last one, this is my favorite. SITA. SITA is the system that has all the passenger information. right? So I can put you on a flight, I can take you off a flight, I can get a list of all the passengers on a flight. I'm not even familiar with all the features you can use, but this is really bad. Okay, this is the internet computer with an empty password on the main switch of the airport. So lucky for us, I guess I would say. I know the guy that works at Polish CERT. This is Przemek, and I immediately called him. I was still sitting in front of the computer, and he said, "Okay, give me a full report." I sent him a full report, and he actually called them. You know what happened? They argued with him. They said, "No way, that's impossible." Until he started reading IP addresses and VLAN names, and then they're like, okay. So, this got fixed, lucky for us, and because this guy works at the National CERT, then we know that they're also looking at all the other airports in the country. Now, if any one of you knows anyone at your local CERT, like the two guys that just came off stage, you should look for the same problem. Yes, this is not supposed to be running. We already had that last year. Guys, okay, I'm just going to rush for this. This is from last year's presentation. Don't you like it when stuff goes bad when you're on stage? 1 second, ignore. Everybody think about something happy. Let me do that. Or you can look at me doing some acrobatics here. Yes. This you can look at from last year. Where's the next one?
You're giving people so much fear of missing out now that they missed your talk last year.
Well, yeah, it's on video, but if you pay me, then maybe I will give it to you. All right. You see, I also give you extra stuff. So, loyalty cards. Copies on the house. This, by the way, don't talk about this, okay? This is a serious problem. They haven't fixed it yet. No tweeting, no taking photos. The video is going to come out after they deal with that, so please respect that because this is other people's money. Aroma is a nationwide coffee chain in Israel. They have about 240 branches. This is the distribution. You can see that. And they offer loyalty cards, which is something that they didn't invent. They have that in many places. These cards, they look like this. It's a nice black card, has the logo. It is anonymous, which means no one knows whose it is. If you lose it, it's gone. They can't, cancel that. You can get any number of those. No one knows. And when you use them, you have to prepay, and you do it on premise. You have to go to the cashier. You say, "Hi, I want to charge my card." You get the money. They load it on the card, and then it gives you a 10% discount. So that's the motivation to go back. Now, why did I do this research? First of all, I had the tools and I just wanted to use them. This is a 3-track reader and writer for magnetic stripes. And I was really looking to find a project to do some research with this. Because credit cards you're not allowed to touch. And this is different. And then they have online balance checks, which is great because if something can be done online, then potentially you can automate it. And that also has a source of vulnerability. Sometimes they don't do stuff well. It's something that if you see that, you know there's going to be something there. And there was similar research already performed in other countries by others. Now, when I say research, it's not exactly research. It's hackers that found out how to steal money from other cards of other networks in other countries. So I figured, okay, so this is my country and this is a place that I go to all the time. So let's see if they're safe or not, because otherwise it's my money that can get stolen. So you need to make an attack plan because this is in my country, right? I need to make sure it's okay, and I need to think how to approach this, which is something you should always do. When you don't plan stuff and you just do stuff, then bad things happen. Okay, remember that. So attack vectors. The web interface offers us a number of things to look at, right? The first one is authentication. What sort of authentication do they have, if at all? Is it tamperable? Data extraction. When you interact with the website, how much data can you extract out of it? And web automation. How much can you automate in order to extract information? The magnetic card has two directions. First of all, what's on the magnetic stripe? What is the content of the magnetic stripe. That's something we need to look at. And what is the data validation when you use it? If I just make up stuff on the card, if I just change a number there, can I still go and pay, or is it more sophisticated than that? Coming again to ethical hacking. An ethical hacking framework is the document that shows that you were thinking about the risks and you are approaching this in the responsible way as to not cause any damage but still be able to do your research and prove your point. So, point number one, privacy. We don't want to expose the private data of other people. It's very important when you do research. Know other people's money, okay? Because this is a card that holds money. So if we hack it, we try to fake it, use other cards, we can't use other people's money. So it all has to be our money. This is very important because it's also borderline criminal. If you use other people's money and they complain, this is theft. You can't justify that. No crashing service. Once again, very important. I mentioned it before with the taxi service. If you probe it too quickly and you crash the server, then now you have taken them offline. You don't want to do that because it causes them damage. And you don't really have to do that because there's no point in straining the server. And last, it has to be legal. Now, why am I saying that? Because in Israel, there is, it's called the Israeli Billing Card Statute. And basically it says that any modification of the magnetic stripe of a billing card without the written permission of the body that issued the card is criminal. Okay? If I take a credit card and I change one bit, it's a crime. It's a crime against the state. So the person that owns the card doesn't even have to complain. The police can just come and arrest me. Right? But in this particular case, this is the back of the card, and this actually says this card is not a billing card as stated in the Israeli billing card statute. Now, why did they do that? Because, of course, that means that they don't need to follow all the regulations. They can do whatever they do, whatever they want. Because if it were a billing card, there are regulations, PCI 1, blah, blah, whatever. When they say that it's not a billing card, they can do whatever they want, but then again, so can I. So, website analysis. This is the website, this is how you check for your balance. You put in your card number, and this is the result that you get. Now, the result not only gives you your credit, the amount of money you still have, but it also gives you up to 10 last transactions. The last 10 transactions that you did with the card, which includes the date, the time, the amount, and the location. Okay, I can know where you've been using your money. This is a privacy issue. I hope you start to see that. Now, this is the card itself, and that's the card number that you're expected to punch in the form. And there are 4 more security digits that apparently are not used anywhere. I was expecting them to be part of the card entering number, because otherwise you can just make up a number, but no, they're not used. So I said, okay, if mine ends with 4, what happens if I put 5 instead? Boom. Now I get the information of somebody else. And that's not good. This is a privacy issue again. So yeah, that's a nice thing. If you look at the traffic, you can see that the probing of the balance is performed by a very simple request. And you can just mimic that with CURL. I'm not even writing sophisticated tools. I'm not using any hacking tools. This is a command line tool on Linux. Specifically, I did it on my Mac. So CURL and all the fields. And an important thing is no cookie is required. There is a PHP session cookie when you do it from a browser, but if you do it from a command line, there's no cookie. You don't need the cookie, so you can just do whatever you want. And coming again back to ethical hacking, we added an HTTP header saying, opt out, contact pxadmin @forinterx. Right? So if someone sees something they don't like in the logs, they can give us, not a call, but they can send us an email, and we can explain to them that it's okay. Right? We bought a bunch of cards, and we decided that in order to not crash the servers, we're not going to enumerate on all the card range. We just made 4 groups of 250 that each of them had our card inside somewhere, and another group of 20. So altogether, we only enumerated on 1,020 cards, which is nothing. You do it slow, you don't strain the server, proves the same point, really. You don't need to enumerate on everything. Looking at the card data, this is more or less the conversion between euro, dollar, and shekel. You can see most of them are empty, but that's because most of them are actually not used yet. Cards that are not activated have a zero balance. And the other half has between 1 and 100 shekels. And then you have two cards that have actually a lot of money. If you look at the top amounts, then you have one card with 1,000 shekels. That's like 250 euros. That's a lot of money. If you are able to steal that, that's really cool. So looking at the... Oh, one more thing you can do, by the way. If you're a criminal and you don't want to get caught, you can analyze, let's say, the places that the person went, because you have a list of all the places they went. You can follow that over time. So you can ask questions like, do I want a card of a person that goes to the same branch all the time, and then I can go to the same branch, so if they look at the list, it looks okay? Or is it the other way around? Do I want to find a card that is used all over the country, so they don't keep track, and I can just go to any random branch, and they wouldn't know, because they're like, well, we go all over the country, so this must be us, right? Or you can do the same for the amounts. If someone always uses small amounts, does that mean that they keep track? Or if someone uses big amounts, what does that mean? So there are questions to be asked if you're a criminal. Now going to the card analysis, and I'm running short here. There are 3 tracks. The second one is the only one that has information. Protocol prefix, the card identifier, 7766, it would be otherwise for Visa and MasterCard. Then you have the card number. Then there's one digit that we didn't know what was. This is always 0, and this is the suffix. So we try to figure out what this is. I tried making a random number and went to use the card. Didn't work, so I knew it had a meaning, right? The first candidate, of course, is the Loon algorithm, also called modulo 10. They use it for credit card numbers, identity numbers, and this one didn't work. Then I thought maybe it's the 10's complement. You just sum all the digits and complement it to 10, and that didn't work either. And I don't know why I didn't try that at first, but it turns out it is as stupid as the digit sum. So now that means that I can pick a card number, and now I know how to generate the control digit, and now I know how to generate the entire magnetic stripe. So now it was time to test it. You can see 2 cards here. They have different numbers. What I did is I took the number, not the magnetic stripe, the number of the second, generated the magnetic stripe, wrote it on the other card, and went to buy cappuccino and cheesecake. Now if you look closely, you will see that the card number on the receipt does not match the number on the card. Okay, so this worked. Disclosure, we wrote a document, we called them, they didn't answer. I'm Israeli, so I just walked to their office. It was just a 10-minute walking away. And I left the document, they called me back, they argued a little bit, and nothing really changed. This is why this is all not for publishing, they have to fix it yet. So a bunch of vulnerabilities with a lot of damage, right? I can steal anybody's money, and they're working on that yet. Now, why did I pick these? Okay, and this is going to be my last 3 slides. Why did I pick these examples? They're not super hacking, super sophisticated. Everybody else is going to do much better. 1, my dad test. Most of the vulnerabilities affect people like my dad. They are not sitting in this crowd because they are not computer experts. So they're not going to know what's going to happen. You just heard about ransomware. My dad could do nothing wrong and still get hit because of these things. So it's up to us, the security researcher community, to find these problems and fix them. Because the chances of sophisticated attacks going against my dad are small. This is going to be much more common. 2, when you talk to high executives, C-level executives, and you talk about sophisticated attacks like Rowhammer and shell shock, they don't understand it. And when they don't understand that, they distance themselves from it. They say, nah, this is too complicated, it's not related to us, it's not going to happen to us. So you can't convince them to treat it seriously and allocate the money. But when we show them something like this, even the CEO of a big pharmaceutical company watching this talk will say, wow, I could do that. And then they understand. So it's very important for educating the public. And the last one, I do a lot of teaching in Israel. We have the local DefCamp group, and we teach new researchers. And it's very important to teach them how to access these problems. And the steps that I'm showing here are very basic, but this is how you train people to start from nothing and make their way into becoming a researcher. Always ask questions. Always doubt everything. Always ask, why is it like this? Is it always like this? Is it like other places that I've seen? And also do no harm. It's also important. People sometimes